independent Bangladesh, the provisional government of Bangladesh took oath at what is now called Mujibnagar. During the month of April in 1971, Tawfiq Elahi Chaudhry was the young dynamic officer, a civil servant of the then East Pakistan, who switched his loyalty to Bangladesh, and he was the person who arranged for the oath-taking ceremony of the provisional government of Bangladesh near Meherpur, now called Mujibnagar, on April 17, 1971. He is a witness, he is a participant in the 1971 Liberation War of Bangladesh. Today he will be talking to Doordarshan and All India Radio about that glorious period, especially about April 10th and April 17th in 1971. Thank you so much, sir, for agreeing to talk to Doordarshan and All India Radio about this, specifically about these dates and in general about the Liberation War of Bangladesh. Let me begin, sir, by asking you about a very important thing. At that point of time in 1971, several civil servants switched their loyalty from being a civil servant of Pakistan to Bangladeshi civil servants, or switched their loyalty to the Liberation War of Bangladesh. Could you tell me about the role of the civil servants who did this at great personal risk, I'll say?
It's a long history crammed into a short period of time, 9 months. But it goes back a couple of decades when Bangladesh was facing challenge to its language. So 1952, the language movement of Bangladesh in East Pakistan was the precursor of a lot of other things to happen. That was the renaissance of our language. Pakistan wanted Urdu as the state language, and our students, folks, stood up, gave their life, and now it's not only a national day, it's recognized as International Mother's Language Day all over the world. And following on that, there were political movements which gradually got into momentum, led by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. It started with the simple question of the rights of Bangladesh, East Pakistan in the framework of Pakistan, economic, political and other rights. Then it picked up momentum to emphasize that these things have to be sorted out through election and through a due process of democratic process. That's how 6-point program was drawn up by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, which were the foundation of our negotiation with Pakistan. It had in itself some of the very essential issues that we are facing then with Pakistan. And then when Pakistan military government swept aside the 6-point demand, arrested Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and then aborted what was to have been a meeting of the Constituent Assembly of Pakistan in March 1971. So on the 7th of March, in the race course of Bangladesh, Dhaka, I was there surreptitiously, because I'm not supposed to be there, attending the huge gathering, mammoth gathering of people, a sea of humanity, to listen to Bangabandhu's speech in a very tense moment of political struggle. It seemed to have been getting to a final end. And he laid out the basic reasons for our movement, the rationale for this. It was then articulated as autonomy, and then it got into sovereignty later on. So that inspired me. I was a young civil service of Pakistan member, but somehow or the other, I was not a politician, but somehow or the other, the call of Bangabandhu's speech and the depth of the issues that he raised over a period of time had got many converts unwittingly. So when you are young, you take risk. idealistic, and it was a time of great thrill for us also to be able to join the liberation war of a country. There were other civil servants who also switched side. I was lucky to get absorbed in the Bangladesh Defence Forces. I was commissioned as a captain, and then I was a sub-sector commander in Sector 8, where I, in a small way, took active part in raids, ambush, uh, harassing Pakistan army along the border and quite deep into the country also. That process, which was unleashed throughout the country on 7th of March 1971, sent a message throughout the country that we have to prepare ourselves for an eventuality. And Bangabandhu said, this is a struggle for independence, this is a struggle for liberation. He did not declare independence, but it was a struggle for independence. And then he said, you get ready for meeting this enemy, you starve them. Your floodplain is your security. And so other things, which it became later on a cardinal principle of guerrilla warfare. But anyway, you all know that on 25th of March, the Pakistan army brutally executed the Operation Searchlight, killing thousands of people around the country and in Dhaka in particular, students, political activists, even people in bastis, rickshaw pullers, this was indiscriminate killing, and I don't know of any instance in world history. I'm a very small reader, but I've not read an instance in world history where in one night maybe 25 to 30,000 people were executed. But that did not, cow us down. Contrary to that, we became even more inspired to go and, get it over with Pakistan army. So, to cut a long story short, we are organizing ourselves in small pockets throughout the country. I was in Meherpur SDO, so I, in my own way, I organized some students and some paramilitaries, which were under my control, to take responsibility or at least defend this place against the onslaught of Pakistan army, who by then had located themselves in Kustia, 29 Baluch, which was very heavily armed. We were a company plus of troops, but the arms were very heavy, heavy machine gun, recoilless rifle, anti-aircraft gun. These were normal battalion, infantry battalions don't have this. So, and they had taken position in Kustia, so the threat was very close to our place. Meherpur is just about 50 kilometers maybe from Kustia, and pockets were organized in other places also. If my friend Mahbub was SDP of Jinaida, he organized a resistance pocket in there, and Chuadanga became the headquarters because all the EPR, there is Pakistan Rifles, the Bengali members had revolted against Pakistan army and had joined the liberation war, and the war had just not started yet, but they all got together in Chuadanga under the leadership of Major Usman Chaudhry and Captain Azam Chaudhry. So these were the pockets we were trying to coordinate and first to take up on the army units, Pakistan army unit in Kustia. That happened around 30th of March. The attack was launched on these Pakistani establishments from three sides, mainly led by the EPR, and then the small pockets of volunteers that we had raised from Chuadanga, from Meherpur, from other places. And interestingly, it proved one point, that in war, it's the morale that wins,
Yes.
not the weapon. Because when we encircled them and thousands of voices, but the war cry was Joy Bangla, that brought fear in their mind, I guess, because they couldn't estimate how many people, it could be 100,000 people. So when you lose your morale in the army, weapons don't matter. And so they started retreating. All of them were, some were killed in Kustia city itself in engagements with Mukti Bahini. Others were trying to get back to Jessore, were ambushed on their way. So, to my knowledge, only one officer, Captain Ataullah, survived. But the rest of the unit was annihilated. They couldn't go back to their garrison in Jessore. Now, one thing before that, I go a couple of days before, on 26th of March, I sent an open letter to India. I said to my Indian brethren, please help us with arms and ammunition. I put my stamp of SDO there to give its credibility. And interestingly, I used those who used to smuggle in the border, because they could one who could easily go and get to the other side and send them to India. 26th, the letter was signed 26th of March. And then I got a call from Indian side around Betai that to me go and meet them. This was maybe around 27th, 28th of March. So I went over and met Colonel Chakraborty, who was a BSF and sector commander, and Mr. Chatterjee or Bhattacharya, I forgot, who was the DMO Krishnagar. So they received me and I was given guard of honor. They said, you're the first ambassador from Bangladesh. And then I said, I have all that I need. We need some arms and ammunition, because we are all organized against the professional army. So it's not, it's a tough job to mold them. So they said, all right, we will let our superiors know that you have come. But then they said also, they had a bit of apprehension or ambivalence that these young people, what can they do about a war of liberation, against the professional army. After the Battle of Kustia, we had taken over most of the land area on the western side of Ganges, up to Rajbari and all, Gualandu. So we thought this is the beginning of our victory, with this is huge area, Mukto Elaka, liberated area. Little knowing that the Pakistan army would launch counter-offensive on us. But at that time, a lot of journalists were coming in this intervening 2 weeks. And all of them asking that, who's your leader, where is your government, who are you under? So we put some, answer, it's there, But and we had established telephone link with Calcutta.
Okay.
So over phone I asked, requested Tajuddin Ahmed, sir, we are being asked by the media where is our government? Then we need to have a government. So he's a very solid politician, he doesn't have a knee-jerk reaction. He said, Tawfiq, it will be done, wait a little while. Then another call. At that time, the counter-offensive has started from Jessore garrison on us, and we were retreating. Suddenly, our victory, which seemed at our doorstep, was turned around, and we were, in a haphazard way, we were retreating. I was bachelor, so I didn't have much of a problem, but for example, Captain Adam Chaudhary of EPR, he had his mother, sister with him. He was not married. Major Usman Chaudhary has children and family. The EPR people had family, children. So we had not planned any retreat. So it's very haphazard retreat, and it had very adverse impact on our morale also. So we insisted Tajuddin Saab to get moving. And then I was told that on the 10th of April, the elected members from East Pakistan, they sat down and together they formed a government of the independent government of Bangladesh, which, as you said later was sworn in on 17th of April.
Yes, sir, coming back to adding to what you said, that it was a historic event in which you participated in allowing or kind of helping Tajuddin Ahmad and Barrister Amirul Islam to cross over to India. And I think there is a whole story behind it, how they Golak Majumdar took them to the other side and then they were flown to Delhi and all that. So on April 10th, it was hardly 10, 12, 15 days within which the provisional government of Bangladesh was declared after ratification of the independence, which was announcement which was made by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman on 26th of March. So I wanted to know, sir, about the importance of this declaration of the provisional government. In what sense was it important, and your memories of 10th of April?
It was not a provisional government. It was the first independent government of independent Bangladesh. It was not a government in exile because it took oath on the land in Bangladesh. So, and it was, if you go back and look up the proclamation of independence, it reiterated those arguments that was put up by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman on 7th of March.
Okay.
Why? What were disappointments? Why we are about falling apart? What were the economic and other exploitation, political exploitation? Short of saying that we can't stay with you, is laid out the framework for independent Bangladesh. The importance of 10th April was that this whole vision of Bangladesh was articulated in a legal form on 10th of April. Because you just can't say we are independent. That has one value. But if all the elected members, if they form a duly constituted body to formalize the independence that was declared on 26th of March by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in the form of proclamation of independence, in the form of cabinet, and then later on 17th of April, that cabinet was sworn in Mirpur. These are linked, the 10th and 17th April. But these two together gave us the first government of Bangladesh, gave us the rationale behind, parting our ways with Pakistan, and the choices we had. It is in fact the proclamation of independence is a mini constitution. It's part of constitution now, but it was a mini constitution which went further to say that we'll meet international obligations and we want support from international quarters. So it was a small but a very powerful document. If this government was a duly constituted with legality.
You mean to say that it was a full-fledged government because it was sworn in on the territory of Bangladesh, which was independent or self-governed at that point of a time, even though the area may have been small. Exactly. So it is not correct to call it a provisional government, but a full-fledged government.
Full government, and that's how when the government was sworn in, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was announced as the president, and Syed Nazrul Islam was vice president.
Yes.
And Tajuddin Ahmad was sworn in as prime minister, and the other ministers. And it was said that in this proclamation of independence, in the absence of the president, acting president will take over the responsibility of the president. So during the 9 months of liberation war, Sir Nazrul Islam took upon himself the responsibility of president, and Tajuddin Shahab and others were, he was the prime minister, and there were others members of the cabinet. So, and it also, it's not correct to say it was a government in exile. They are working maybe in exile, but the government that was formed, sworn in on 17th of April, it was on a piece of land in Bangladesh, and that is why it was so important. And it was both, I must say, a lot of assistance from Indian side, because at that time the Pakistan army had reached Meherpur, which was about 10-15 miles from this place, Buddhunath Tola, in the border place.
Yes.
So they could have, there was a risk that they could have come in short notice if they had come to know that something is happening. And also, if they could utilize Pakistan Air Force. But the advantage was, this is a bit of a kind of a, not fully an enclave, but that of half enclave. So if Pakistan Air Force had to do anything, they would have to go to Indian airspace.
Okay.
So that saved us from any air attack, and we were given some assistance from Indian BSF and bit of maybe Indian army elements to secure the perimeter of the place.
So if I may ask you, sir, that on 17th of April, you were the one who oversaw the arrangement for the oath-taking ceremony. Can you remember some of the things, although it's a very old thing, but I think it is such a historic and such a moment that there may be many things which you might remember even now. Some anecdotes, some stories, or something that you remember from that day, sir?
As you rightly said, as we are growing old, the ability to remember things are getting restricted. Few things, for example, we had reconnaissance this place for the final arrangement on 16th of April. So when we went there, so with the help of Indian BSF and all, and the local people were asked to get hold of some, chairs, because it's a village,
Yes.
and to make a small podium, and then get hold of some people to sing our national anthem. These are small things, but it was very difficult to organize in that place. And the last one that was also became very important when the unit of Major Usman Chaudhary was supposed to give guard of honor to this new government, and he somehow got delayed on the way. So we can't, change the program. All the dignitaries had come. Scores of media people, home and abroad, had come. So I told Mabu, who had a police officer, that can you, organize some kind of a guard of honor. She said, let me try, but because I'm a police officer and these guys are not trained as much, but an hour or so they will give it. So they were taken to a corner, and because we are not sure that Usman Chaudhary will turn up in time, these people were, about maybe 20 or so people were being trained at that time in the morning to give the guard of honor, this kind of stuff, present arms, shoulder arms, and it was led by Mabu. So actually when the occasion came, nobody knew that there has been a substitution, that these guys are not the ones who are supposed to, because they had, barely any shoes on their feet, the clothes were all dirty, and in fact, at that time, since we are making very irregular retreat, disorganized, we didn't have much to eat also. That morning, with those people in border outpost. Mamu and I had our meal maybe after 3-4 days. So we shared their dal bhat, I remember, but it was heavenly when we ate that. And it was tough at that moment to reflect. It was very exciting for us, a romantic time that a nation is getting its first government sworn in. So it's very and the one of the last chapters of that British history was to partition of India. So the British made sure that they would leave some apple of discord, and so there was a country, Pakistan, West and East Pakistan, 1,000 miles apart.
Yes.
Nothing common except religion, and we had different language, different culture, and we never felt, in any meaningful way part of them. In fact, I remember when I was in Civil Service Academy, Lahore, when things were getting hot, I told some of my colleagues who had come from West Pakistan that, look, you insist that this is Pakistan. So why didn't you first go and get Muslim countries around like Afghanistan, Iran together? Why keep an eye on 1,000 miles away? They had no answer. So that last part of British history was being undone. It's being finally put in the grave of history. So that gave me a lot of excitement, a lot of pride that we could finally undo the last legacy of British Raj.
Coming back to slightly different question, last two questions. I hear some people in Bangladesh saying that considering the importance of April 10th, it should be declared some kind of a Republic Day or something. So how do you respond to this kind of a demand?
So I don't know whether Republic Day or something, but the day is very important, as you said, in the history of Bangladesh. As much as 7th March was important, 26th March was important when independence was declared, and those are given effect by 10th of April and 17th of April. So I see them as and eventually on 16th December, I see them as in one string of history, and they all have their place in our history.
Thank you so much, sir, for talking to Doordarshan and All India Radio.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
G20 नए विचारों की परिकल्पना के लिए और सामूहिक एक्शन को गति देने के लिए एक ग्लोबल प्राइम मूवर की तरह काम करें। वैश्विक विकास महिलाओं की भागीदारी के बिना संभव नहीं है। भारत की G20 अध्यक्षता की थीम वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर में पूर्ण रूप से समाहित है।
Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on Doordarshan, India's national television channel, about Indian foreign policy, India's international relations, India's engagement with key strategic partners around the world, and how India is helping to shape a better world order. Viewers, in this episode, we are taking up India's relationship with a very important special strategic partner, South Korea, and South Korea's evolution as an Indo-Pacific power. And to discuss the importance of South Korea for the Indo-Pacific region, and especially from a bilateral and regional point of view with India, I have a very distinguished scholar joining me from Gwangju National University in South Korea, Dr. In Jung Lim.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Professor Lim, thank you so much for joining Indian Diplomacy. It's an honor to have you. To begin with, South Korea has come up with a new Indo-Pacific policy, and this has caught a lot of attention in India because in the past it used to be thought that South Korea is a weak link in the Indo-Pacific strategy of the US alliance system, but now South Korea has its own strategy, and it matches the strategies of many other countries, including India's own vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific. So I'd like you to start by telling our audiences why South Korea has come up with its own Indo-Pacific strategy, and what is the thinking and what kind of regional and global factors have played into the shaping of South Korea's Indo-Pacific policy.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for raising a very important question. Yes, we have been very much pragmatic, I will say, because, Korea, of course, its size, geographic size, physical size is not that big, but we do have a pretty decent number of population, and based on the manufacturing and free trade this country has developed, and then we accumulated our wealth, which means the best condition, best environment for the South Korea-like merchant and a trader country. Again, the superpower, their relationship should be friendly too. Otherwise, we cannot, our choice, again, our diplomatic choices will be pretty much narrowed, because as we all know, South Korea still faces furious challenges from the North Korea. So as long as, we have this very deep conventional security threat from the other side of the peninsula, we definitely need to prioritize our security, even though we want to be more pragmatic with more superpower, but still, again, this conventional, traditional security reason is still there. And in addition to that, US, China, again, their strategic competition has been increasing and increasingly serious, especially in the field of new technology. And having had that structure changing, in addition to that, again, Russia invaded Ukraine last year, and we all realize that this kind of thing can happen even in the middle of 21st century.
Yeah, and Professor Lim, you mentioned North Korea, and obviously that is an overwhelming threat that South Korea faces, and for various historical and emotional reasons. But the broader region, the Indo-Pacific strategy of South Korea is not just limited to the Northern Pacific. It talks about Southeast Asia, South Asia, Pacific Island states. So there seems to be a broadening of the strategic focus of South Korea beyond just North Korea, isn't it? And earlier administration of President Moon Jae-in had something called the New Southern Policy, and now we have this Indo-Pacific strategy. So is South Korea looking to play a bigger role in the broader Indo-Pacific, and if so, is it moving out of the US shadow and trying to play a more independent or a more forceful role in the region, you think?
Well, again, as you highlighted, our previous government, the Moon Jae-in government, they also suggested, new Southern policy, and they also prioritized the relationship with the ASEAN countries or Southeast Asian countries like India. I think this is a very natural evolution. Again, as a merchant and as a trader, South Korea has been always looking for good, friendly market, and the place we want to invest more. So in that sense, again, of course, China, the economic rise of China has been a fortune to the Korea's economic wealth. Definitely, having had the rise of China, I think South Korea could be able to again develop further. So now, South Korea is one of the top 10 richest countries in the world. But again, we still want to maintain a good relationship with China, but gradually the market or how they conducted their policy has been gradually more and more risky to the Korean industry. And of course, the international environment changed a lot too. So having said that, definitely ASEAN and India-like countries, this is a fascinating market to the South Korea. Again, India now is the most populous country in the world. It surpassed China's position very recently. Not only that, again, India is the largest democracy in the world, which means we can understand better. Again, our regimes are much more compatible, and militarily too. Again, the Korea is of course a part of the Eurasian continent, but we are disconnected as long as North Korea is there. And as long as we don't have infrastructure connectivity with the Eurasian continent, South Korea is like an island. So it's very natural for us to go out again through the maritime, the sea lane. And the maritime security, those things are naturally important for Korea. Again, our energy, for example, 90%, more than 90% of our oil, gas, those things are traveling along the sea lane, which starts from the Persian Gulf and Malacca Strait, South China Sea, East China Sea. Again, the maritime security is super crucially important for this island-like country. So definitely in that sense, South Korea, I think it's very natural for South Korea to think about bigger role or more, those responsibility in the Indo-Pacific region.
Right. So South Korea is looking to take greater responsibility in the Indo-Pacific, says Professor Ingjun Lim. Viewers, apart from the Indo-Pacific policy, there's also the US alliance. And on that front, South Korea has been strengthening the US alliance and also patching up with Japan. And these are big developments. And I'd like you to hear a very important set of reports, watch these reports on the coming together of the old allies, US, Japan, and South Korea. And let's hear this and continue the discussion.
Sure.
The United States held joint air exercises bilaterally with South Korea and Japan involving strategic bombers on Sunday. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the exercise demonstrated the Allies' overwhelming defense capabilities and readiness posture. The South's military said in a statement that the exercise, quote, affirmed the United States' ironclad commitment to the defense of the Korean Peninsula. In a separate exercise, Japan flew F-15s over the Sea of Japan with US bombers, Japan's defense ministry said in a statement, calling the security environment, quote, increasingly severe.
Leaders of Japan and South Korea met on Thursday in a historic moment because it's the first time that a South Korean president has visited Japan in 12 years. The two countries, both allies of the US but with centuries of animosity between them, are increasingly being driven closer together by China's growing presence in world affairs and mutual security threats such as North Korea. Underlining that subject, North Korea launched another long-range ballistic missile that landed in the sea between the three countries just hours before President Yoon Suk-yeol arrived in Japan. This video released by Japan's defense ministry is believed to show the missile's contrail. Yoon and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida hashed out several new agreements in the visit, including tightening intelligence sharing and ending an almost 4-year dispute over raw materials used in high-tech equipment. The visit also came in the middle of joint military drills between South Korea and American forces. It's not clear if the warmth between the Japanese and South Korean governments will change opinion